All right, guys. So, what do you think of the new studio? You know, we're here because I know you guys really wanted to do something new and different. So, my gift to you was a brand new recording studio. What do we think?
Man, this place is nice.
Yeah, you like it?
Yeah.
Top of the line.
Yeah.
I mean, except for that clock in the corner over there that looks like it doesn't work.
Oh, yeah, it was a gift. It looks charred a bit. I'm not really sure what's going on there. But Marvel, I had to bring you in to be a part of this. You know, you are expert in podcasting, and wasted all your family's money trying to become a famous podcaster. So I needed to bring you in for this.
Yeah, my studio was built by Libyans, so it wasn't as put together as this one.
Yeah, this one was built by Americans, so cheap and quick, you know?
Yeah, everything's cool except for I don't like that Huey Lewis picture that you hung up.
Where?
Speaking of cheap, we don't even have microphones to record with.
Microphones? Where we're going, we don't need microphones. That's right, because plug your headphones in and you're about to hear some serious shit. Because we're going back to the rewatch.
When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
3 unqualified morons and microphones. This is the previously recorded podcast. Welcome back to the rewatch, people. No more. Our title has never been more perfect than it is today for previously recorded, as we are talking about another rewatch of a historic film. And to do so, I needed to get the guys in the studio, a brand new studio, no microphones, top of the line. It's like it's from the future. Bob and Shane, welcome back to the show.
Thank
Good,
you.
man.
Feels
Welcome
good
back to the rewatch.
Feels good to be
Back
back.
to the rewatch. Yes, I'm excited for this. I'm excited for this new venture.
It's a great place to do business, you know?
No, I was just being sincere. I'm excited for this rewatch. Yeah, that wasn't a bit. It's just like this is a series of films that I'm excited to rewatch.
I'm most excited for this movie in the rewatch, but I'm very excited for
I'm excited
the
for
rewatch
3.
in general.
3?
You're not excited for
3?
Yeah, because I feel like I'm excited to talk about 3. I don't want to watch it again. But 3 was my favorite as a kid.
You don't want
I
to
can
watch
say
it. What are
straight
you,
up.
yellow?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's all it is. Michael J. Fox limping because of the Parkinson's.
Oh,
That's a fact. It's from the fucking.
Is that when it starts in the third movie?
Yeah.
Oh, that's sad.
Now I'm sad.
Yeah, sorry. I didn't realize you were being sincere.
Nah,
I've had
yeah.
too many flux capacitor fizzes
Yeah.
today. But of course, as we always do with a good rewatch, you got to bring in our astute film veteran, Marvel, who watched this movie multiple times in preparation for today's episode.
Yeah, I was just invited over to hang out. I didn't realize I was going to record.
That's not
but
what happened.
However,
That's producer Nick fumbled the bag.
Classic miscommunication.
yeah, my people and your people just didn't communicate well. But I
Crazy because your
genuinely,
people are the same guy.
Yeah.
It's both okay.
I genuinely love this movie, so I am excited to kind of be here.
You know what
And-
that sounds like to me? A real butthead move.
And you know
Yeah.
what sounds great? The show, because it actually is produced today by off-mic producer Nick. Nick, say hello. Say hello to your adoring fans.
Hello.
How did it sound? Did your voice sound good? Okay. He's actually normally does everything post, but he's here in studio
We're
today.
live producing today.
We're live.
Like the real bigwigs have asked us to do.
The suits in Washington have been clamoring for a live edit from Nick.
The owner of the studio came down pretty hard on us. This is literally make or break the show. We got to do good, guys. We got to do good.
All right.
All right, so
We're
we're
just
here.
going to do the same shit we always do, though, and then we'll find out what happens.
That's right, because in this 1980 sci-fi classic, small-town California teen Marty McFly is thrown back into the 50s when an experiment by his eccentric scientist friend Doc Brown goes awry. Traveling through time in a modified DeLorean car, Marty encounters young versions of his parents and must make sure that they fall in love or he'll cease to exist. Even more dauntingly, Marty has to return to his own time and save the life of Dr. Emmett Brown. Released on July 3rd, 1985, and directed by Robert Zemeckis, and written by Zemeckis and Bob Gale, starring Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd, Lee Thompson, and Crispin Glover, this film sent shockwaves through the movie industry On a budget of $19 million, it went on to gross $388.8 million with only an opening weekend of $11 million, but continued to be number one for 11 weeks in a row. On Rotten Tomatoes, it is 93% positive from critics and 95% positive from audiences, with the synopsis saying, invented, funny, and breathlessly constructed, Back to the Future is a rousing time travel adventure with an unforgettable spirit.
A lot going on there.
Yeah,
Wait,
and then nothing else to say.
If he built a time machine, why would he put it in a DeLorean?
If you're going to make a time machine out of a car, might as well do it with
All right.
some style.
So I want to come out right. I have all the facts, right? So I watched the movies that made this episode.
But do you have the fun facts?
A lot. They are kind of fun. So there's a lot of things going on there. So originally it was a refrigerator.
Yes.
There was supposed to be a time machine out of a refrigerator.
How is he going to make a refrigerator go 88 miles per
I
hour?
don't know. I don't know what
I'd like to see
I
you
don't-
get 1.21
actually,
gigawatts through a
the way-
refrigerator.
the other
1.21
another
gigawatts.
side of that, to get back from 1955, they were going to use a nuclear atomic blast was the thing that was going to provide the energy to send the time machine back. But to do that, they at one point they were like $8 million over budget. And they were like, all right, we need to cut. So what do we cut?
That doesn't sound like Spielberg. Spielberg comes in on budget.
It's not. It wasn't Spielberg.
Oh.
Like, he's producing it, but he's not, like, directing it. So that was the whole thing. So Spielberg's guy, Sid, what's his name? I said it already. Sid Sheinberg, right? Was the one who was, like, overseeing everything for the entire movie. And he was like, you got to figure this out. And so they're like, all right, we're going to cut the atomic bomb scene, and we'll figure. And that's when they went to a lightning bolt.
So cutting the atomic bomb scene gets the best scene in the movie.
100%. And it was a $6 million scene, apparently. It saved him $6 million cutting this
Set off a
atomic
real
bomb.
atomic bomb.
They had to build. They said they had to build like a tower to like drop the thing from, and then all the CGI and everything else that they were gonna have to do.
It's like, what's his name? What's the director? Christopher Nolan.
Christopher Nolan. Yeah. Christopher
a
Nolan's
real
like, nah, I'm
bomb.
doing it. I'm just gonna drop it, whatever. But yeah, so it was in a car, and then the reason they made it a car was because they were like, how are we gonna transport this time machine from set to set to set? And they were like, we can just make it a car and drive it
I feel
everywhere.
like having it be a car is a good way to sell merch too. No one's buying a fucking refrigerator
Yes,
time
I
machine.
still want the
toy.
DeLorean, like I said.
And the DeLorean was a piece of shit. So
It was. I didn't know that until I was like older. But
Do we know
when I was a
that-
kid, I wanted a DeLorean
Yeah.
real bad.
Did this movie help
I want that
sales
Lego
on
set, too.
DeLoreans
It has
back in the
to
80s?
have.
Like, did they skyrocket?
but
I
they
don't
were like
know.
the DeLorean was chosen because of its futuristic look.
So it was the wing doors.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then it looked like a spaceship is the
Yeah.
way that they described
Yep.
it. Yeah. And then you see it in the movie.
Yeah, it looked like it, but they were unreliable cars. So I don't know how the sales did. But obviously, like growing up, that was always like one of the first cars.
I'm sure it must have been a little bit of a bump.
Yeah,
like when this movie came out.
I'm sure. So we talked about Spielberg a little bit. So one of the fun things about
Have
this,
we said the name Back to the Future since this has started? Like, have we actually like acknowledged what we're talking about?
No, but when they hit play on the,
Yeah,
they
that's
hit play
fair.
on
I
the
know it'll be
episode.
on the title, but we've never been like, yeah, we're gonna talk about Back to the Future.
Well, let's rewind. Let's go back.
We got to go back and
to the
re-record
beginning of this recording.
So the fun thing about Spielberg is that Spielberg had helped Zemeckis get his previous movie made.
And they sucked.
I don't think it was necessarily a good movie. I can't
flopped.
say.
It's a fact.
Is it
They
the
flopped.
Used Cars movie?
Used Cars, and then he produced a film called I Want to Hold Your Hand. They both bombed.
Okay.
But like Spielberg loved Zemeckis.
So Spielberg came and wanted to get their. So they got this movie was denied a ton of times. Studios would not greenlight it. They didn't like the script. The script was rewritten like 40 times. But they didn't want Spielberg's help because they didn't want to be known as the guys who only got their movies made because they knew Steven Spielberg.
So there's the other side of that. There's this guy Frank Price who worked for Columbia. This is all that
What
documentary.
a name, though.
Yeah, I know. It's all that.
It's like also like the
documentary,
most
right?
generic
Yeah,
white name.
so he buys the script for Back to the Future when he's at Columbia. It never gets made. Nothing happens with it, right? Spielberg's involved in that. Then Spielberg calls and he has what's his production company? Amblin. So it's right after Amblin opens. And he's like, we want to do this. Amblin is under Universal.
Yes.
And he's like, let's make the movie. Columbia still owned Back to the Future.
Oh,
Technically.
okay.
Frank Price had left Columbia, was now running Universal. Yeah, so Sid Sheinberg is the one who, like, he had a lot of things he insisted on. So Frank Price bought the film. Spielberg's not, he's producing it, he's not directly involved. Sid Sheinberg's, like, Spielberg's, like, mentor, I guess, in Hollywood. And so he's like, all right, you're going to oversee Back to the Future. Sid Sheinberg, also the guy who insisted that Eric Stoltz be Marty McFly.
Yes, which that's a whole thing, and we'll get to that. But the fun fact about this movie is that they cast Eric Stoltz to play Marty McFly, and because Sid Steinberg believed in him, he was doing another movie for Universal.
Did Mask,
He did Mask, not The Mask. He did
very
Mask.
serious film.
Yes, but he was like, he's got it. So Eric Stoltz played this as like a horror movie.
And Sheinberg's whole thing is that he said, if it doesn't work, you can refilm everything.
Yes. So
And then they did.
He was playing it as a horror movie?
So he filmed.
because imagine going back in time.
I
It
feel like
makes
this
sense.
only works if it's goofy, though.
The table read.
Correct.
All this stuff is in that documentary, which is it's very interesting. Like especially having just watched the movie and then I watched the documentary like the next day. So the table read that they do, they read through everything and they end the film with like, all right, we got to go to the future. It's your kids, whatever, Marty, whatever. And then Stoltz was like depressed, and they're like, "What's your problem?" And he's like, "This is tragic." And he's like, "What are you talking about? It's tragic." He's like, he has to now go the rest of his life pretending that he remembers the first 18 years of it when they all lived a different life and Marty didn't live that life. And they were like, yeah, man, it's supposed to be like fun. Like, it's like when we did the bracket and I like got real deep with like, oh man, if everything was like luck and then like, yeah. So it's like, he just couldn't
Like, hey, man, this is like a comedy.
take the step back and just let it be a comedy. And so then apparently the scene that was like the one that Robert Zemeckis was, so they just kept shooting stuff, and they would shoot like 8 different cuts of everything with Stoltz and be like, yeah, we can piece that piece from this cut and that piece from this cut, because it never was right. When he first gets to 1955 and he's in like the town square, they were like, he played it like it was a horror film, like he was horrified.
Which it could, like, if you flipped it, like it could be, like
Yeah,
it is
I
like
mean, this
a scary concept of like going back in time.
and your life is on the line.
Yeah,
Like you could be ruining your future because your mom wants to bang you.
Yeah,
like this idea of your parents wanting to.
It would have never got that far.
Yeah, I wouldn't have let it. I mean, he lets it go pretty far.
But she doesn't let it get that far.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, wait.
That was actually part of the script. Was like the writers were like, we need her to be the one that like realizes it and makes it that something's wrong and makes it feel like he's kissing a brother, which doesn't make any sense. There's nothing that happens that would make it be like that. But
Otherwise,
the audience would feel is already so against it that they're like they just immediately accept
Yeah,
it.
otherwise he's just some weirdo that's trying to hook up with his mom.
Yeah, I mean he's
So his
actively
dad
not.
can come break it
Yeah.
up.
He's actively not, but
He doesn't like it.
I mean, for the fact that his dad has to come in and break it up.
yes, yeah.
And then it
yes.
just gets extremely dark once Biff comes in.
real
A weird
dark.
weird
Well,
line though, like
She's like, save
nice
me.
nice girls don't like when you take advantage of them.
Yes.
It's like I don't like where this is having seen the movie a bunch.
Yeah.
He says that line and I'm just like, ugh. Like,
Yeah.
I don't like where this is
It's like
going.
he almost rapes her. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of that.
But speaking of the Stoltz controversy, so this film cost $19 million to make. They wasted $11 million on filming these parts with Stoltz.
So the other side is when they then eventually do get Michael J. Fox. One, he has to split time with
Family
Ties. So he's doing Family Ties during the day, Back to the Future at night. And 2, they have to recast Jennifer because the original Jennifer was Jan Levinson from The Office.
No shit.
Yeah, and she was
Oh, that would've been
when they casted Michael J. Fox, she was like 6 inches taller than him, and they polled the crew to see if it would work. But instead of having like, hey, we're gonna shoot some stuff and see what people think.
Oh, polled them.
They
Okay.
they polled all the women in the crew and were like, hey, is this? And they're like, no high school girl is dating a guy who's like a foot shorter than them. So then they had to recast, and then I don't even think I remember. Melora Hardin was the original Jennifer. That's Jan Levinson. I don't remember what the other woman's name was. Like the actual Jennifer.
Has she been in anything else besides this?
No, she had to quit. She did. The reason she didn't come to the second one is she had to take care of her mother. So they recasted her with the lady from The Boys. She was the head of like Vault.
Yeah.
Whatever the actress is. Do you know her name? Elizabeth Shue. Yep. Producer Nick, thank you.
God,
Elizabeth
damn, Nick.
Shue of
Wait, so
Karate Kid fame.
She was recast in Back to the Future too?
Yeah.
Back to the Future 2 is
Part
Elizabeth
2
Shue.
is Elizabeth
Did I not
Shue,
notice that?
Because his
She's
the original-
barely kind of in
I mean,
one.
she's like asleep
She's
for most of
done
it.
Yeah.
Oh shit, she is. How did I not notice that?
She's not even really in
Because
one
we haven't
that
watched
much.
it yet,
She's
bud.
in-
She is like
yeah.
she is like knocked out for most of it.
Yeah. He
And
just
then-
leaves her on the porch, right?
Yeah, you too,
Yeah, on the porch
yeah.
swing.
Yeah, so I mean, those are kind of. There's one other thing that I wanted to mention.
There's a lot of like behind like the production aspect of this film, which is like very interesting.
So the spaceman from Pluto bit.
So do you want all the other stuff that Sid Shine either wanted or didn't want? There's a lot.
Sure, run through some of the heavy hitters.
Yeah, so Sid Sheinberg is like he takes it on. He's like, all right, here's what has to happen. So originally, here are the things that were in the script, right? Time machine is a refrigerator. Energy came from the atomic bomb. We already talked about that. Not Doc Brown, Professor Brown.
Ugh.
Right?
don't like
and
that.
there's at one point in the documentary, Bob Gale looks at the camera. He's like, it was Professor Brown Goes to the Past or some like weird shit like that was what a title that they had thrown out there. So that was the other. They had the assistant is not Einstein the dog. It's a chimpanzee named Shemp.
I don't know if I hate that.
Yeah, well, there's a whole thing about how people don't like chimpanzees and like monkeys won't play in a movie. And apparently they said to Sid Sheinberg, they were like, hey, Charlton Heston or somebody, I forget who it is, had like a primate sidekick, and he goes, that wasn't a chimp, that was an orangutan, and like got like real offended by it. Like, no, get your fucking shit straight.
Well, I guess some of that too is like it gets a little bit borderline too goofy. Where a
It's,
dog
yeah,
is
it's
believable.
too out of
And
control.
then the other, it's like, oh, this is a comedy.
And then
you know,
when
like
Marty
too
comes
goofy.
back to the future, instead of just like his life being different, he comes back to what they described as like the 1939 like futuristic World's Fair. So like almost like an Epcot type
cool.
scenario. And they were like, that's not going to work. 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 And then Sid Sheinberg was like, they said Spaceman from Pluto. Or they said Back to the Future. Sid Sheinberg said Spaceman from Pluto, and he sent like a memo to the recording, like everybody. They're like, hey, I want this to change, not Back to the Future, Spaceman from Pluto. And the Bobs, so Bob Gale, Bob Zemeckis, and Steven Spielberg are all like, hey, we want Back to the Future.
Well, the way that I heard this was that Spielberg
Fixes it.
sends him a memo being
That's
like,
exactly, yeah, exactly, yeah. So
Like,
he
that's
sends a
a
memo
great
saying,
joke.
you're changing the title, and Spielberg sends a memo back saying, thank you for your hilarious memo. We all thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah, I think it's
Just
so
to be
good.
like, yeah, you're
Oy
done.
vey.
Like, you're
It's
not doing it.
Well, he hated him too.
Who hated who?
Spielberg didn't like the head of
He didn't like
Universal.
Frank Price, probably.
Frank Price,
Yeah.
and Zemeckis held it as a grudge for everybody who didn't greenlight the movie. So yeah, so those are like, and then one of the other things about Stoltz is that the actor who played Biff despised Eric Stoltz. Said he was an asshole on set, went a little bit too far.
So
So
a bit of local lore about Biff. Do you
Yeah,
know
he's-
this, producer Nick?
he's from Lancaster, PA, ain't
So
he?
yeah, so Biff is from pretty local. A little more local lore. I forget the guy's full name.
Where is he from?
I mean, I'll look it up right now. So Wilson is his last name. I know that much, right? So he's played by Thomas F. Wilson. So let's see where he's from specifically.
And he plays Biff Tannen. And I was at a Quizzo, and I said Biff Tanner. And he said no. He said, if you just would have put Biff, I would have gave it to you. But I was like, you're an asshole. was like, you are an asshole.
So for any of you like local
That is kind of.
rum pots like myself who've ever frequented a Patty Wax establishment, Patty Wax Conley or
It was
Patty
not.
Wax
It was
Welsh.
not Quizzo Joe.
It was not Quizzo Joe, but no. So there's a bartender named Ray. He slicks back his hair. We've all probably
pushback or
seen.
slick back?
It's slick back. He's kind of an asshole. No, I love Ray. But so I went to Patty Wax one time. This is years ago. The College World Series is on, and he goes, "Yeah, I think it was UC Irvine, which might be a miss, but like University of California Irvine is just one that they're the Anteaters. It's a fun name." And he goes, "Yeah, that's my nephew pitching for that team." And I was like, "Oh shit, no way." And he's like, "Yeah, it's my nephew." And then his dad is. It's my cousin's kid. I think he said, but like, he was calling him his nephew after that. And he goes, "Yeah, his dad's Biff from Back to the Future." I was
Oh,
like,
no way.
fucking way.
Yeah.
Is it?
Don't
is
even
it-
have to say Back to the Future. Say no more.
I said no fucking ways. Are you related to fucking? And he's like, "Well, how else would I know that information?" He's like, "That pitcher," and his name's Ray Wilson, and he's like, "That pitcher is like that's my cousin's kid, and his dad is the guy from Back to the Future." And I'm like, nobody's digging that deep into a UC Irvine pitcher. 8 minutes later, they cut to the stands. There's fucking Biff Tannen in the stands. And I'm like, all right, so Ray. From a bartender who most of us grew up on in the northeast of Philadelphia, his cousin is.
Also, what a random
Ray
weird
Wilson.
poll for it to be not true.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, to be like, oh yeah, Biff from Back to the Future.
exactly.
What a weird lie.
Yeah.
So we've hit you with a bunch of facts and information about Back to the Future. So we are talking about Back to the Future. So when was the first time? So Shane, this was actually your idea. It was an idea that I had brought up. We had discussed a little bit, and I brought it up, and then we ended up doing Mission Impossible instead. So
That was like 3 years
Yeah,
ago.
what a.
Is that how long it's been? Like this was.
yeah,
Was this
we
the next after Indiana Jones? Was this
Yeah,
the
it
next
would've
in
been.
line
Yeah,
originally?
because I think we were going to keep.
You know
doing-
what's crazy?
No,
is
because
we-
it went Indy, Star Wars,
And yeah, Indy was COVID. That's yeah.
and
you're
then
right.
Yeah.
we were like just going to keep rolling with Spielberg, and then I was like, no, I want you guys to watch Mission Impossible.
Which,
You know what was
thank
crazy is we were so against it.
Mission
and
Impossible.
then
I hate Tom
I'm
Cruise. I still
so-
do.
I'm so
I
glad,
love Mission
'cause I
Impossible.
love those
but I
movies.
fucking hate Tom Cruise.
And I
just
knew
like-
you would.
I'm
but
so
you
glad
would-
we did that.
You would, one, it's 6 movies, and you would never watch it on your own. So this is my way to force
It's
you
like
to
we
like.
could
Plus-
watch
plus
three
I-
fun Back to the Futures or like 6. How are there 6?
Yeah,
That's,
6.
yeah.
Plus,
Yeah,
I
but they were-
didn't really like the first
So
like,
yeah,
2.5.
so the first one sucked. Like, because it was
First one's okay.
It's so old
Yes.
and it doesn't age well.
Two
The
sucks.
second
Two
one
sucks.
sucks, but it's so bad it's fucking like wild. Like watching the second one with a purpose, watching the second Mission Impossible for a podcast is a good way to watch it. Because I'm like, oh, I'm gonna trash this.
Well,
I'm gonna trash this.
Everyone go back to listen.
Yeah, check it out. Mission Rewatch. And then obviously it gets better after 3. 3 and on, it gets
like
better.
midway through 3, I'm like, all right, I like these now.
Yeah. So this was this idea, and so Shane brought it back up. He's like, hey, I got some free time coming up. We should record some stuff. And I said, whatever you want to do. And he said, I want to do a draft or we'll rewatch Back to the Future. And so here we are. We're rewatching Back to the Future. One of my all-time favorite movies. I had the privilege of talking about Back to the Future with Marvel when we did our Blockbuster Summer over on Gateway Gamers, and I loved it. It was a great time talking about it. And so I always seize an opportunity to talk about one of my favorite movies. If you follow me on Letterboxd, it's in my top 4.
I was gonna say, here's a fun letterbox fact. There's also a poster in the new studio.
Yes,
for
there
Back
is
to
a
the
poster.
Future. But,
Right as you open the front door.
Yeah, as I was going on Letterboxd to say that I watched the movie, there was no doubt in my mind that it was going to be straight 5s across the board. It's not like one of those things where like I watch the movie and then I go check my friends to see what they rated it. I was like, yeah, I know what they gave this. I'm
Absolutely.
giving it the same thing.
I mean,
Absolutely.
I changed my mind a lot, but at one point I did have this as one of my top 4. I would put it as like 5 or 6.
I don't
It's in my
think
top 10.
I don't think
know if
it's a top.
top 4. But
I
I've
change
it's in
my mind so
Letterboxd
often.
4 because of the way I like to do my letterbox. It's just my variety of
Yeah,
interests.
I mean,
I don't
my-
know if I'd have it as a top 10.
My top 2 will never change, but my 3 and 4 change quite often. Especially like if I rewatch a movie I
What are
really
your
like.
top 2?
Terminator 2 and then Shawshank.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if I'd put this.
That'll
in
never change.
I don't even know if I'd put it in my top 10. I'd have to like sit down and think about it. Back to the Future is the most. It's on TV. I'm gonna watch it movie,
Oh, yeah.
possibly of all time.
I would say that or
Remember the Titans is one.
Remember Titans?
That's
Remember
up
the
there
Titans
with-
is
oh,
up there.
I'm not
Star
changing
But
this.
here's the
Wars.
difference, right? Back to the Future. But Star Wars, it's like, is it the one I want?
What
like,
part is it at?
Yeah, where are we
yeah.
at? Back to the Future, you just kind of like, and so that's like the funny thing. Back to the Future, my childhood. You were gonna ask like, when did you watch it? Whatever.
Yeah. Yep.
I knew where you were getting with that question, and we can go back to it. I don't remember the first time I saw Back to the Future.
I don't think anybody does.
It was constantly on in my house to the point where what I do remember is my mother yelling at my father and me and my brother and my sister, "Do you guys watch anything other than this movie?"
That's awesome.
But we
That's
didn't
awesome.
we didn't have a VHS of it, so it's not like we were like.
If you did at the time VHS came out, it would cost you. How much do you think it would cost you to when Back to the Future came out in 1985? So probably
so
VHS 986.
$99.
How much do you think it would
So
cost? you?
just Back to the Future though. It's not
Just
like it's
the
set or anything.
Just the movie. Back to-
$29.99.
To buy it on VGS?
Whatever that word was.
Yeah, VGS.
I let it go. I was letting it go.
I don't know, like 25?
Producer Nick, what do you think?
You don't have a mic in front of you.
15.
You know what? The fact that you're asking, I think it's low, like $7.
Was it the Burger King?
$80.
Yeah.
to own
They
a
were expensive back
You
VHS.
were 100, right?
Yeah.
Because as we had discussed, because back then VHS was a brand new thing. You could never own a movie. You caught it on. I don't even know.
And
TV at
VHS
this
is
point.
the first thing.
Yeah,
it's
you
not
would-
like a
it's-
record
there was
cassette.
Beta
Or like
discs.
Max or
Beta,
whatever,
yeah,
yeah,
the
yeah,
discs were the
So it
first.
was either you saw it in theaters or,
like
you caught it once a
TV
year.
TV Guide would say it was
on
HBO.
TV. But to own it, it was $80, and that's why this was the most rented movie the year it came out. Because places like Blockbuster and Suncoast Video and Hollywood Video and all that,
Farmore.
I don't know what the hell that is.
You went there.
Farmore?
Farmore.
You
yeah.
could rent a VCR from like.
Far-
See, you could. No, you could.
Yeah,
I
straight up,
believe it. It's so
Farmore,
funny.
dude. I know this because I know your family. Maybe you were too young to remember. There was a Farmore in Franklin Mills Mall. It was what would the equivalent be? It was kind of like
a Walgreens.
like a Walgreens
Yeah,
CVS
yeah,
type
yeah.
place, but there was a video section to the store. That's where we rented all of our stuff before there was a Blockbuster close.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could rent. You used
I'll
to be
have
able
to
to rent
ask my parents.
You
VCRs
could rent the
from,
whole VCR. Yeah,
like
Because I used to
pharmacies.
live. Yeah, producer Nick, get on it. I used.
You guys
to,
are
like,
too young. That's why I like when Marvel's on the shows. Because I have like a
My old ass.
Well, he saw.
I could say
saw it in
we
theaters.
could have.
I saw it in theaters. I was there.
We could have been the same. We could have been the same age for that. You could have just been my
So I
my
actually.
lifeline. You'd have to be older than me.
So I saw it in theaters for the first time this year, which was awesome.
I've never seen it in theaters.
We went to where they show the Blob. What's that theater?
Oh, in Phoenixville.
Phoenixville. Yeah,
Yeah.
whatever theater that is
Yeah,
where
yeah.
they filmed the Blob. We saw it there. A historic
They
theater.
filmed the Blob there.
Yeah.
They,
so
they
they
know they filmed the people running out
of the movie theater. So it's
And
They
they have
filmed
Blob Fest
something
every
from the
year.
Blob there.
Yes,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
original.
yeah.
Yeah.
so they were showing it. I was like, I need to see this in theater, so we went.
That's
But
a
I
cool
asked my
theater to see
dad.
it in, too.
Yeah, it was cool. And they gave a little speech beforehand
Mm-hmm.
about like some of the facts, kind of like what we did here. So I asked my dad. I said, did you see this in theaters?" He said, "Yeah." I said, he's like, "I loved it. It was great." I said, "But was there like much talk about it?" And he said he didn't really remember people talking about it, which I find interesting because at the time I felt like it was a big hit.
I don't trust your dad with these kinds of things.
That's fair. I mean,
He's not the most reliable source.
Thank you for your service,
Yeah,
Bob.
he'll probably listen to this. So tell him you don't judge him. I'm gonna get a text out of the nowhere.
I know what he was talking about.
3
But
months
also,
from now.
so like,
I'm
I
gonna
can tell you
exactly. The episode will drop 3 months later. I'll get a text. Yo, they don't know what they're talking about. What the hell are you talking about?
I can tell you straight up, my mom, like my references would be my mom and my dad. My sister was born in '85, so that's not helping. My mom, you could, unless it's the American president, she doesn't know what the movie
My
is.
dad loves that movie.
So
too.
there was,
Yeah.
they were just watching it the other day.
My
I
dad
want to remind
loves
everybody
that
it's
movie.
2025. My parents were just watching the American president the other day. I walked in, Michael J. Fox, for the record,
Michael J.
also in
Fox.
it. I said, I don't remember Michael J. Fox being in this movie. And my mom goes, "You've seen this movie?" And I said to her what she said to me. When I was a kid, I said, yes, aside from Back to the Future, this was the only movie that was ever fucking on the TV in this house when I was a kid.
Oh wow.
And so, like, it was the two of them. And then my dad, I feel like, watched anything on TV. But I don't know that he would
Yeah.
go to the movies. He still steals your movie.
He's
I
welcome
have
to.
offered him to come to the movies with us. And he's like,
He's more
I'll
than
catch it
welcome.
when it comes out.
Yeah, he doesn't. He's more than welcome to come see Cap if he wants. But so Shane, since you were the one that wanted to kind of do that. I mean, we all wanted to do this. But when was the first time? Do you remember your first time seeing this, or is this kind of a movie you grew up just like kind of like all of us? I remember how for me it was on frequently with actually my cousin Pat. We would go down to his shore house, and there were two.
You had the VHS.
We had two VHSs that the kids would watch in the front. It would be Jurassic Park and Back to the Future. That's what I remember. He could tell you.
Spielberg classics.
But do you have a remembrance of when you watched this for the first time, or like it was just kind of always on?
First time, no. I know in high school I watched it a bunch because I just like Bob said, if it was on, like if I'm looking around on the TV for something to watch, if it's on, I'm putting it on. Like
Yeah.
I don't remember the first time. No, maybe it was high school. Maybe I missed it when I was younger, and high school was when I got into it. But then once I did, I watched it all the time.
Okay. Marvel, you just kind of the same thing, right? You don't remember. It's just kind of always been
Yeah, I
in the
don't remember the
forefront.
first time I've seen it, but growing up, my uncle had like a huge VHS collection. Like before, it was like the thing to kind of do. So he was the one who definitely introduced us to like Star Wars, E.T., like a lot of those
Big ones.
era of movies that kind of molded my childhood were probably around that time.
Yeah.
And I remember getting it from like Tacony Library when you used to get VHSs
Nice,
from there.
nice.
Like, yeah, I mean, I vividly.
I watched most of the Land Before Time.
Yeah, like we talked about before. Like I remember going. One of my earliest memories is trying to rent Alien at the library and be like, "You can't." My mom just be like, "It's fine." 'Cause we watched like everything. Like there wasn't anything off limit movie wise. So.
And I think that continues today because most of the time I talk to you about something, you're like, "Yeah, I've seen it."
Yeah, now I have my son watching late '80s, technically G movies that should be
Yeah.
rated R.
Yeah, what was that?
Monster Squad.
I thought it was, but there's so many parts of it. That's like, I don't remember this.
Your review of that on Letterboxd was pretty funny. You kind of called it like nonsense.
All right,
Yeah,
so
We're gonna
This
throw
is a
a,
We're doing that
completely-
later. We're doing Monster Squad another day.
this is a completely separate question, but now I am curious because Back to the Future is obviously like a childhood staple in everybody's life at some point. What's the first movie that you remember seeing in theaters?
Jurassic Park.
Okay,
Elf.
you're so young.
Or Blade 2. My dad took me to see
Blade 2.
Blade 2.
Oh,
Blade 2.
I've talked about this on the pod. I was too young to be seeing Blade 2.
It's a great movie though.
I don't know,
yeah.
because I hit like a spark, but I saw Phantom Menace in theaters, so that has to be up
You're
there.
But do you
young
remember?
for fan. No.
Yes, I
No,
Okay,
he just
all
doesn't
right.
remember if there's anything before.
I can't. I had
Phantom Menace, you're 7, right?
no one. It was 99, so I was 5,
Oh, okay,
6,
yeah.
6, 5, 6.
Blade 2, I was 7.
I saw Matrix Reloaded in theaters when that came out, but I remember when Phantom Menace came out, I had a little paper and I had all the movie times written down. As soon as my dad walked in the door, I went like this, and he's like, "I don't want to go to the movies tonight." Like, he just finished
Yeah,
work.
it's like, we're going tonight. We
And
have to,
I got in trouble. Like at one time, my dad was like, "If we go to the movies tonight, we're not going. You're not allowed to do anything for the next 2 weeks." I was like, "Okay." You know what that movie was? Agent Cody Banks. So I wanted to see it so bad.
What a miss.
Yeah, but I would
Our
say
next rewatch.
probably one of the first movies I saw in theaters was Phantom Menace. But I'm sure there's another one.
Producer Nick, do you know yours?
think I do.
What was yours,
He does have a
Producer
mic.
Nick?
I think it's the last movie my mom saw in a movie theater, Stuart Little.
Oh, wild
a
fact
good
about
one.
Stuart Little. I had a kid in grade school told me I look like Stuart Little. That's all he said. He goes, "You look like Stuart Little." And my response was,
It's a mouse.
I said, "The mouse or the boy?" Like John
Yeah.
Zawicki or whatever his name
Yeah.
is. And his response was both. And that's lived rent free in my head
Yep.
since
What a dick.
I was 12. Yeah, he's not wrong, dude. I'm
you
really
don't look like Stuart Little.
12,
look
not
him
even
up.
like 5.
Yeah, look them both up. I'm not far. Jonathan Lipnicki, that's the kid's name.
Nick, what about you? When did you see Back
The
to
Little
Future?
Vampire. Love that movie.
It feels like it's just like. I would say it's definitely one of these like Shore House just on
Yeah,
movies.
yeah,
So like
that's-
second, third grade.
Second, third grade? Okay. Second, third grade. Did it stick with you? Did it make an impression? Yes?
He
Or
is.
no?
He
Do you
is.
like it now?
Not young, no, like later on, I would say.
No, it's funnier if they can't hear what he's saying.
I mean, they're going to
He
pick
just said-
it up from the
he just said it was
outside.
the
He's in the
greatest.
booth. He's in the...
They're gonna turn the volume way up,
Here's
and then
what
Bob's gonna talk.
actually,
And just
yeah,
blow the
yeah.
speaker.
He actually just said
Kill it.
it's a masterpiece. It should have been.
What they don't know is that we had real mics that would have drowned me out. And I said, I don't want them. Give me the fucking... I want
We're
the
mic
boom
free
mics.
though. We're mic
yeah.
free.
Nick's doing a great job. Yeah.
Yeah, I want this to grow to the point where we're like Nick's in another room.
I want it to be
He
in
can
an
turn
actual
his
movie.
mic up, or he
Yeah.
can be like, "Yeah, shut the fuck
He
up."
just
You're
he
done.
punches in, then punches
Yeah,
out.
yeah, yeah.
Give me 2 weeks. I can build. Give me 2 weeks in plexiglass. I can build something. I
Or just
promise.
give me like probably at night, and I can order just Nick one more
We
mic,
could just
and
get
he can just keep
we
it
just
turned
put a
down until he
cardboard
wants to
box and,
chime
like
in.
some cellophane over it, and just have him
Yeah.
stand there.
So yeah, this is a movie that kind of it's always been in my one of my favorites, and more recently it's kind of popped. It's always been in my. I would always say it's been, if it's not been in my top 10, it's been circling my top 10 forever. But recently, I got to see Back to the Future on Broadway, and I kind of just relit that fuse, that spark, that flux capacitor that for the film, for the franchise. It's kind of, but it's always something that resonated with me. I believe to this day, Marty McFly is one of the coolest characters to ever grace the screen. But I don't know if I necessarily appreciated like how cool the movie was from the first time I saw it until like this concept that one, it works, it still works, it
still
holds
works,
up,
but that's
and
the
it still
crazy
looks
thing.
good.
Yeah.
And so, is that something that you guys would agree with? That it's kind of, I don't want to say recency bias, but like something. Maybe,
I think it's the opposite of recency.
not
bias.
recency bias, but like maybe something you realized while maybe doing this rewatch is that like, oh, like there's a lot of things about this that shouldn't have worked. and they
Watching this
do.
movie, like, because Back to the Future is one of those movies I feel like even I was talking about how we watched it down the shore. I feel like I took a nap. You know what I mean? Like I fell asleep for a little bit. I woke up. It's one of those movies you've seen so many times that you just kind of tune in, you watch what you watch, and then it's over. Watching the movie from start to finish, probably for the first time in God knows how long, you sit there and you go, oh shit, this movie rocks. Like this is it's just such a good movie, but you just know all the scenes, and so the one part of the movie that I didn't remember is the first like 20 minutes, because that's, if you're watching on TV, that's the part you miss, right? Like I don't remember Huey Lewis being the guy judging the contest.
I
in the
learned that
beginning.
recently,
Like
yeah.
I saw it and I was like, oh, I popped. I was like, oh shit, Huey Lewis. There's like
I also didn't know what Huey Lewis looked like until
I
recently. either.
did, yeah. But like so like
I didn't grow up with Huey Lewis like you two. So.
all of shit, exactly.
Yep, yeah, huge penis.
All of, all
That's a
of
fun
my
fact for
Really?
He supposedly has a huge
yeah,
penis.
Huey Lewis apparently huge cock. That's I love the '80s. I feel like that
think
came
so,
up
yeah.
on
Did
there.
he strum with his cock?
Yeah, nah, he was
Just
he
all
was-
the groupies
He
who
just
said
rocked,
he was hanging.
But like, so the beginning of the movie was where I was watching it.
Did
I'm
you notice that there is a man hanging on a clock in the background?
like, I didn't.
There's in the beginning. There's like 100 clocks, and one of them actually has somebody hanging.
the ones
on
in Doc Brown's house.
Yeah,
in the
that,
beginning of the movie.
that's what's crazy.
It's a
Like
reference to
when
the
we
future.
did our rewatch, and like same thing, where like you don't think of the beginning of the movie because like it just
It's
nothing
just
much
happening,
happened.
yeah.
But like how much they set up.
so much.
Well, there's a bunch
Like,
of stuff, right? So
yeah.
that's all of my notes, and I'll run through them now because we're not doing this as like a classic like rewatch type thing. But like, first off, the school looks abandoned. It doesn't look like run down. That looks like a place that nobody goes.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that's what Byberry Hospital looked like. Huey Lewis was a big one I popped for. Biff's line where he's like, "Is your insurance gonna pay for this?" And he's like, "I spilled beer on this. Who's gonna pay for that?" As he got into a car accident, I'm like, and I mean, it was like Biff is the fucking best,
yeah.
like that right away.
fucking hate Biff.
You should, but he's also the best, like stereotypical.
He's a Philly dude
bully.
for sure.
What's fun
Yeah.
now is that the Miller Lite that he got, all you got for me is
Yeah.
light beer McFly, is now how the Miller Lite can looks. They reverted
Yeah,
back
they
to
went
that.
back to that. There was another one. Oh, so when they're at that, like when Marty's at home with his whole family, right? One, I was like, this. I went and looked up ages because Crispin Glover and like the makeup he's old. Michael J. Fox is older than Crispin Glover.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Still like, which still blows my mind to this day. But like the idea that like in the makeup he's supposed to be his dad, and he's still like, he's
Yeah,
already,
yeah. Chris McGovern's
But in that
amazing in this movie
scene-
also.
Christian
He's
Butler
so
is
good in
great,
this movie.
and he's also a creep. That's why he's not back.
he's a
Yeah.
maniac.
Yeah, he's a nut job.
So
yeah.
there's another thing from the documentary I'll tell you in a second. But so that I never noticed in the first when they're at the house, Lorraine, like Leah Thompson.
Looks like she got stung by a bee.
Yes, but she's talking about how like a girl shouldn't be calling whatever, and she's just
Park
pouring,
car with a boy.
She's just pouring vodka into
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
Right? Right? Like she's just drinking vodka straight basically at dinner. And then later she says to Marty, she was like, yeah, do you want something to drink or whatever? And he's like, what? And she goes, anybody who's anybody drinks. And I was like, and that's when I was like, oh shit, there's so much
set
that
up a
they set
lot.
up. That's just very clearly going to happen again later.
But even like the joke with like the was it Twin Pine Mall?
and then
And then later they knock the tree
yeah.
down. Then when we go
Yeah.
back, it's one pine. Like
Yeah.
it's just those little things.
Did not notice that.
Really?
yeah.
Did not notice that.
Yeah, so
Holy
when they,
shit.
knock,
They
when
changed
they go
the Lone-
back, it's
Lone
One
Pine.
Pine Mall.
Yep.
I
There's,
did not.
there's
They're
so
like
many
Wilson
little
Goody.
things.
Like,
Oh,
the whole beginning is like Wilson Goody, Wilson
Yeah.
Goody, Wilson Goody.
Golden
And it's like,
Wilson.
who fucking cares?
Yeah.
I like the
Or,
sound
yeah,
of
Goody
that.
Wilson, Goody right? Is that his name?
Gordy
Wilson.
Wilson.
Goldie
Goldie Wilson. Goldie Wilson.
Goldie
That's what it is.
Wilson. Goldie Wilson.
He's
Goldie
got a
Wilson.
gold tooth.
Yeah, Goldie Wilson, Goldie Wilson. And it's like, all right, why are we like ramming
Harping
this
on this
down my
guy,
throat?
yeah.
And then he's in the diner. It's like, okay, this
I
is
like
Save
the
the
sound
clock
of that.
tower. Save the clock tower. Yeah. They set you up with so much, and then they knock it down in a very nice way. You know, you're a slacker, McFly. You've always been a slacker.
And then Strickland comes back.
I
and
love that.
Slacker McFly.
Has he ever had hair? Yeah. That's a good line.
One of the things that I appreciated in a rewatch is that Marty never says what he should be. He knows he's living. At first, it's fine, but like even by the end of the movie, and he calls him. He's like, "What are you doing, Dad? Daddy-o?"
Daddy-o.
Like
Yeah.
he knows that he shouldn't be, but like I feel like now if they were to make this movie, he would be like, you know, whatever the hell is his dad's name? George. He'd be like, "Come on, George. You know this, George." Like. I feel like that, and I really like that about the movie. Like, it's believable that, oh shit, I went back in time and I'm seeing my parents. Like, I'm not used to calling my dad George. Like, he's gonna be Dad. But yeah, no, there's so much about this movie that I really appreciate. There's so much. You don't realize it until you like sit down and really watch it. How quotable this movie is too.
Well, because I feel like it's like
Get the meat
at
hooks
this,
off
at
me.
this point, it's been what? So it's 40 years since the movie
Yeah.
came out, right? Or going on 40
yeah,
years
going
in
on
July.
40, yeah.
It's like
Holy
part
shit.
of the zeitgeist now, right? Like it's like these you don't realize where we're going. We don't need roads. You don't need to know that it's from Back to the Future. You just know that it's a pop culture line
And
at this
what,
point.
like 2015 is what brought it back, right? Like the whole
Yeah, because it's
because
back
that
to
the second
was
movie,
the year that the second movie goes to.
Because I growing up, like it was around, but like your dad kind of said, I feel like Back to the Future wasn't like it is now.
Yeah.
And I feel like the whole like 2015 like resurgence of like this is the date that
Back to
Marty
the-
went to the
See,
future. I think really like
that probably brought
pushed
it
it. I feel like
back.
that pushed it. People going like, oh yeah, that is a good.
For me, I feel like this movie was. I'm trying to think. This movie in my childhood is what the Harry Potter movies are now. Like, there's a
Canceled?
very rare. Yeah, done, canceled. It's very rare that you can't find one of them being played on a network cable station somewhere, right? So it was always around.
Yeah.
And then we would go to Disney and Universal, and the Universal ride was sick. You'd get in the
Yeah.
DeLorean, you'd go. It was
Never
a whole.
got to ride
You went
That
back
best
in
ride.
time.
Great ride.
Never got to
You went
ride.
back to like dinosaur
Yeah.
times.
Yeah,
Well,
Biff's
that's, I
chasing
feel like
you,
it
right?
had
Yeah.
like it had a peak, kind of like in the
Yeah, it
90s,
dwindled
and then it
again,
dipped,
and then
I feel like
yeah.
2015 really brought it
Shane,
back.
what were you gonna say?
Well, I remember seeing in 2015 where they were doing like all the comparisons. Like, what did they get right?
Well,
What
the
were
Cubs-
they way far off on?
The big thing was the Cubs.
The Cubs was the big one.
The Cubs.
Because the second movie's about the almanac. Like that's
Sports
the big-
almanacs,
yeah.
and the Cubs went to the World Series the year that the movie predicted. They lost, right?
That's what I was gonna say is the big.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the big thing.
One
Like
of the things
it's
that brought it.
But then like Nike made the shoes, and
Awesome.
then the hoverboard like
I
commercial.
wanted
fake
those shoes
hoverboard,
so
yeah.
bad.
so.
The
Is
ones
it
that, like,
that self like zip tied
Yeah,
up
Yeah,
themselves?
They were
so
like
cool.
$500.
So we never actually said this. So since we're doing a full rewatch, this episode is dedicated strictly to Back to the Future, but we will be doing Back to the Future 2, 3, and then a miscellaneous episode basically.
On the cartoon.
Covering the cartoon, covering the musical, covering the comic book.
No, I
and
got
all
some
that
work
stuff.
to do then. I didn't know about that. I read
so
the
yeah.
comic.
Yeah, so did I. I still have
I'm
them.
saying I reread
Yeah, I
them.
still have them.
I have them.
So speaking of, like I said, it was like quotable and how it's all the time. What is your favorite line from this movie, Shane?
I'm not sure of. You got to come back to me. Oh, you know what? No, because I love Biff's. make like a tree. And
Yeah,
get out of
that's
here. I love
so
that.
good.
Yeah,
I
make
love
like
that.
a tree and
Get
get out of
outta
here.
here.
What about you?
I think if it's not that, I think like that's heavy. It's for some
Like,
reason
this
it's
is
funny
heavy, yeah.
because it wasn't like a real.
Mine
Thing in
is
a lexicon.
mine is what is wrong with that? What's wrong with what's wrong with the Earth's gravitational pull? Is there something? Is in the future? Is there something wrong with the group or whatever he says? It's
Yeah,
like the
Earth's
future.
gravity.
There's
That
something
or-
wrong with the Earth's gravitational
Or
pull.
it's your kids, Marty. Something's got to be done about your kids.
Yep, Ronald Reagan, the actor. Which Ronald
anything-
Reagan loved that, by
Yeah,
the way.
yeah,
Anything
Yeah.
Christopher Lloyd says is gold.
It's gold, yeah.
He is without a doubt the
Honestly,
best part.
no. So here, I'll
So
finish
he-
this conversation.
His eyes, his reactions to things, like he's like, back this used to be just a pine, idea for a pine tree farm, and then he just goes,
I feel like he's
I
very
guess-
he's very like slapsticky. Like
Well, so he almost
Physical
turned this
comedy,
role
like-
down. That's another. So there's two fun facts about the casting.
hold
He
off
was-
on the fun facts. What's your quote? What's your quote?
My quote is, "You made a time machine
Out
out of a DeLorean." Like this is
That's heavy.
the impact of it. But so also then watching the best delivered line in the entire film upon rewatch is George is in a tree with binoculars
He's a
looking at
peeping
Lorraine
Tom.
and Michael J. Fox says he's a peeping Tom. It's like the perfect delivery of a line is unreal.
I love the
Yeah, I hold
milk, chocolate, and then obviously, I'm your density,
Yeah.
your destiny.
No, I hate everything Crispin Glover says.
it's-
Basically.
Oh, he's got some great
It's not a
lines.
quote, but like I love his laugh. He's just like, that kills me I think Chris McGovern's a nut job, but I think he's so good in this movie.
He is. I think this is the. This is what's weird to me, right? So Crispin Glover.
Also,
is
Leah Thompson is a fucking smoke
absolute.
show. Still is. She
Dime.
still looks
So
great.
Jennifer in this movie, dime.
Dime as well.
But she left. She left the earth. She only came down here to make this film, and then she left.
she said,
but
my work here is done.
Crispin Glover in this film, wildly, if you've ever seen the Charlie's Angels movie, he plays the same character essentially. He's
always the same.
Another
character,
creep.
yeah.
Isn't
I
he?
picture him as like the Rat King. Like that's how I look at it.
that's a great.
Isn't he the
comparison.
bad guy in Like Mike too?
Is he?
I think he is.
I've never seen that movie.
I think he's
Alright,
like
hold on.
the guy that works at the orphanage or something. At Like Mike.
Producer Nick's doing the big work, but yeah, Stan Biddleman is Crispin Glover.
Like Mike, right?
Yes, and
Yeah,
Like
he's a
Mike.
real. He's essentially
He's
the
always
same like weirdo
yeah,
in that
'cause
too.
even he's the bad guy, one of the bad guys in American Gods, that show, and he was
Oh,
a creep
my
in
dad
that.
loves
So Crispin Glover.
Who got fired from
I'll go to a weird Crispin Glover story, and then I do want to talk about casting because I have a couple questions for you guys about casting. I told you I'm way over prepared for this podcast. How long have we been doing these recordings? RP, how many episodes? How many years?
too long.
Too long. This is the one where I was like, I'm fucking in. Like I'm locked,
In
right?
your fun facts, do you have how they came up with the idea for the movie?
Yes.
Okay.
You can do it though, but that's a little bit different. So
Now we're gonna let the audience Google that one.
yeah, figure it out, bitches. Crispin Glover was like an issue on set, obviously, because he's Crispin Glover. So there was the one scene when they're in the backyard, and like
Well, he's saying
he's
So-
I'm gonna beat up Leah Thompson.
what's awful about it is I say these scenes and I'm getting ready to reference the musical number that goes with it, and
Okay.
I'm like, this is bad. Like
Yeah.
that was number 2 on my Spotify on my
That
Apple,
song?
that soundtrack.
Oh yeah. Well, you
Was
put
the
a
album.
bunch of them on the playlist. We made a Broadway
it's
playlist.
so
It's a
good.
fun
I know
playlist.
people don't like it, but it's so good. Anyway, yeah. So he's in the back and he's like, "This is what you got to do. You got to be." George is trying to. Marty's trying
Yeah.
to teach George how to be
And
cool.
and George just kept Crispin Glover just kept walking out of the shop.
He want to hit the mark.
He wouldn't stay on his mark, and they're like, "You gotta stay on your mark," and he just kept going. George wouldn't do that. George would walk. It's like the one scene, like he used to just fight with Robert Zemeckis. So like when they walk into the diner, Robert Zemeckis like just walk in, and Kristen Glover's like that. George wouldn't open the door himself. Somebody else would have to open the door. And they're like, "All right, well the script says that George would open the door himself. Just fucking walk in."
So the whole part of how Marty has to like push him towards the table.
He's just a fucking weirdo, right? So this is the one thing from the documentary where I was like, all right, that's weird, right? So he invites Leah Thompson over to his apartment to like work on their chemistry, right? To read and work on their chemistry. And then his like thing was that he asked her to help. They painted a volcano portrait together.
the fuck?
Yeah, dude, he's a fucking
He's a
maniac.
weirdo.
Oh my god, that's
And then he
strange.
was like, "Yeah, this is going to work." But essentially, after that,
Was Back to the Future is like a volcano.
I don't know. He just needed the stuff there. So, do you want like weird casting stuff, and then we'll go to your fun facts?
Yeah, sure. Hit me with what you want.
Original Martys. You know any of them? People who like auditioned for Marty other than Stoltz. C. Thomas Howell.
Oh yeah. He was the
Yeah.
original choice after Marty couldn't do it.
Yeah,
Or after Michael J. Fox.
C. Thomas Howell. So, Johnny from The Outsiders, right? For lack of a better comparison. John Cryer from 2.5 Men auditioned for it.
Would have been terrible.
Ben Stiller also auditioned.
Would have
Bad.
worked.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
It wouldn't have been
that
good,
was a
but it
weird
would
one.
work.
And then, so Christopher Lloyd was there, like, that's our Doc Brown, right? So they send, and then I'll give you the Michael J. Fox, like, story about casting. Because I wrote down everything interesting in this documentary, which is a lot, but, like, these were the big ones. Christopher Lloyd, they sent him the script, and it's Amblin's first big film. So Steven Spielberg's first big film. Christopher Lloyd, like, Taxi fame, I guess, is, like, his big thing at that point. And he throws the script in the trash immediately. Doesn't even read it. He's like, I'm not doing it. And his wife was like, hey, this is Steven Spielberg. You sure you don't at least want to look at it? And he like took it back out of the trash and read it. And then with Michael J. Fox, when they go in and they figure out that like, hey, we can get Michael J. Fox to do this, they talk to the producer, Gary Goldberg's the producer of Family Ties. And they're like, we want Michael J. Fox. And he's like, we can do it. It just is not allowed to interfere with Family Ties. And so he does it. And he calls Michael J. Fox into his office. Michael J. Fox thinks he's getting fired from Family Ties because he calls him in. And he goes, hey, look, they want you to do this project. It just can't interfere. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. And he gives him the script. And apparently Michael J. Fox weighed the two. He's like, he has Family Ties script in one hand and the Back to the Future script in the other hand. And obviously one is a lot bigger than the other. Didn't even read it. And was like, yeah, I think I'm going to do it. So then he's doing like back and forth. He's doing like nights and days.
There were scenes like times he fell asleep on set.
He would sleep in between like traveling from set to set. And apparently the opening weekend or like he was overseas doing something with Family Ties. And they called him. And when he picked the phone up, he started apologizing. Like, I'm sorry, I didn't do my best job. I was like so tired. Like, I can do better. I can do better. And they're like, dude, you're the #1 film in America.
Yeah, awesome.
Which is just like, there's a part of me that Back to the Future obsession also stems from the Michael J. Fox obsession. Like, in my head, he's like the coolest dude in the world.
That's what
Always
I said. Marty
has been,
McFly,
always will be.
That's
But like
when you
Spin
think-
City,
I love Spin City. It's cool.
cool.
Dr. Kevin Casey.
Dr. Kevin Casey last year at Gaston or whatever the festival is when he played
when
Fix You with Coldplay.
Yeah.
And he does everything
That
in
was
his
cool.
power to kick his leg up and just the fireworks
That was
fucking
cool.
go off. And then who's the lead singer of
Chris
Coldplay?
Martin.
Chris Martin says, go, Johnny, go, go, go. Like, it's just...
Yeah, that was cool.
Like, Michael J. Fox
It's like he was like
is borderline the coolest man
in
who's
his
ever lived.
in his wheelchair dealing with full-on Parkinson's, and he like locks the fuck in to play that guitar
Well,
solo.
so like I
It's
remember
so cool.
watching
Makes
that.
you think you might be faking it, huh?
I remember watching that on Twitter when it happened. I watched the video and like the one comment's like the amount of energy that he needed to exert just to kick that leg up. And I just started like a big ball in my eyes.
It's funny that you say, do you think he's faking it? Because one of the funniest Curb Your Enthusiasm
Enthusiasm.
episodes is
Love.
with him, where Larry is accusing him of faking it. Because like he's like his upstairs neighbor. He's like, "What are you clomping around up here? What are you doing?"
And he gives him the soda, and he opens it, and sprays, and he's like, Parkinson's. Like, he just,
Yeah, this movie probably doesn't work if it's not him. You know, one of the funny things about The Flash was the whole plot line of Eric Stoltz is... Did you ever watch The Flash, Shane?
No, I don't really have any interest.
That's funny.
If we do it for the pod, I'll watch it.
No, we did it for the pod twice.
we did it in person for the
Was I not here?
No,
You were
couldn't-
working, I think.
Yeah, you couldn't. We got to
Thank
see it
God.
for free. It was fun.
Influencers.
We had
Well,
fun.
so that's my other note is like, all right, so is there a better cast duo than Marty and Doc.
So I think this
In
movie,
film.
Rick and Morty.
I
Kind
think
of.
this movie doesn't work if it's not them two. If it's
Like,
not,
is there another movie where you're like, all right,
well,
one
the-
character
Sure,
is
the
fine.
The dream cast for like if they ever were to do the abomination that would be remake this movie is Robert Downey Jr., Tom Holland.
No, absolutely not. That's your dream.
That's
That's a lot. That's a lot of people.
online. Yeah, that's what.
Yeah,
what.
but do you think anybody could play this role as good as Christopher Lloyd?
No, because I don't
think
want
so.
it remade. I don't
But
want
yeah,
it touched.
this is the movie you don't touch.
No, I don't think so.
No,
I would always love, like, and I feel like we talked about before, whenever I learn about, like, these alternate, like, possible movies that they made,
Like
or
what
movies
could
that
have
don't exist,
happened, yeah.
if I could, like, when I die,
Like a Nick Cage
watch these
Superman
movies.
type thing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, if I could see these alternate reality movies, like, I would love to see this movie with Stoltz, or, like,
Billy Zane plays Biff and
yeah, maybe, but I like the way that this movie is. It would be interesting to see it with Stoltz, but I'm glad we don't have to. It's amazing what this movie could have been. So I just want to hit you guys with one more fun fact with the idea of how this story was actually came up. So Gale and Zemeckis wanted
Did somebody
to do it,
fall and hit their head on a toilet, and that's how they came up with it?
the idea of the flux capacitor.
essentially. Yeah, it's not far off.
And the red letter date in science
In
history
scientific history,
is like
yeah.
1985. Yes, the day I came up with time travel.
Yeah.
I always found that weird. It's like, why is he mentioning that? Like, he's putting the date in. He knows what it is, and it's just like, that's a good crack. So, anyway, Gale and Zemeckis wanted to do a time travel film, but couldn't figure out the plot until Bob Gale returned home and was flipping through his dad's yearbook, and he had the thought of, I wonder if me and my dad would have been friends in high school. He didn't think so. But
And they
had
also
the-
went to high school legitimately 29 years apart. So it's the
That's
exact
exact.
time frame, yeah.
So he said, "I want." So he's like, but he had the thought that he could test this theory if he could go back in time when his parents were a similar age, and that's how he came up with Back to the Future. He said one of the ideas that they had were in most time travel movies, the past can't be changed, so they wanted to reinvent that, and that's obviously why you see the melting or the vanishing of Marty's family. Yeah, I think we kind of covered like all of the big things. One of the things that I found interesting we mentioned about the DeLorean was that Mustang offered them $75,000 to just use a Mustang.
They said no.
And Bob Gale was like, Doc.
Zemeckis said no.
Oh, Zemeckis?
Yeah, Zemeckis apparently was like,
said Doc Brown wouldn't drive a fucking Mustang. So,
But Bob Gale might have said that. All I had was that Zemeckis turned them down.
and then it just broke down.
And then also, like, a Mustang doesn't look... Like, they wanted the DeLorean because it looked like the spaceship.
And then obviously the ending, which we know this goes off to spin a sequel. The sequels don't come for a couple years later. But the ending when he flies off was just meant to be their adventures continue off screen.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't, the sequel
really?
wasn't planned. It was, this is what it is.
Just kind of leaving it open.
Yeah, and so they screened the movie without completed visual effects, and they were like, we need to get this out ASAP. So they had 9.5
They
weeks.
pushed it up. So it was supposed to be, like, mid-July.
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, you're going to be July 4th now. And they were just raw. It was like 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
People were freaking out trying to get it done.
And then the score, the famous score, was actually done by Alan Silvestri, who Alan Silvestri has gone on to do the Avengers. He's done a bunch of films. Spielberg didn't want him because he did Zemeckis' film Used Cars, and Spielberg was like, "This is bad. I don't like the score." So Zemeckis played a bunch of random tapes for composers, and the one that Spielberg liked the most was.
Alan Silvestri.
He's like, "Well, that's Alan's." So Alan composed the score for this, and this is actually why Kevin Feige brought Silvestri to do the score for the Avengers, because Back to the Future 2 is a pivotal movie in Kevin Feige's career in terms of, well, he decided kind of what he wanted to do, and we'll cover that when we talk about Back to the Future 2. But yeah, so those are kind of the big hitters.
The only other fun fact that I had was when they brought in Michael J. Fox, they were like, they started to get like lost in what was Michael J. Fox's cuts and what was Eric Stoltz's cuts. Like if it wasn't a direct shot of his face.
weren't.
So like there were scenes, like if you look at the family dinner in the beginning of the movie, they cut straight to Michael J. Fox, and then because he had to be on Family Ties set. So like there's other scenes where it's like a body double or whatever. Like if it's not directly on his face, it might not
Kind
have
of
been
sounds
him.
like a nightmare.
So then like going back, there's like this rumor, this conspiracy that the punch that's thrown, because Michael J. Fox is so much shorter than Thomas, or the Biff,
Biff.
right? And so like when Biff gets punched, he's like eye level with the guy punching him.
That was
So they
Stoltz.
think it's Stoltz, but there's like the guy who did it said like I went back and looked and we did reshoot that scene. But apparently he was like I'm not. For a while he was like I'm not positive if we even
Michael J. Fox just jumped before he threw the punch.
Yeah, so like there's scenes that they reshot that maybe they didn't reshoot, but then so it's like a weird where they're kind of in between both of them, which is just a wild situation. Like
Fun to think about.
when you think about like how pivotal this film is, and then to hear all the nonsense behind scenes
Yeah.
is like you change one of those weird things that did happen, and maybe it's trash.
And that's actually the fun part about Stoltz getting recast is it allowed them to actually retool entire scenes.
Yeah, they said they like knew the frame of it from the start because they already had it shot and edited and stuff like that. So like, all right, this is a quick. So like the editing process wasn't necessarily crazy, but then the other thing was with the when they showed the audience, they said the biggest problem with the audience when they first showed it, and that's why they moved it to the July 4th weekend. They showed the movie and they sent Einstein back in time, like in the parking lot. And they were like, you could have heard a pin drop. Like, people were getting ready to, like, leave because they thought they killed the dog. And then the dog comes back, like, 2 minutes later, and they're like... And then, like, from there on, everybody was fucking locked into this movie.
So I think that's kind of the big aspects behind the scenes are kind of our thoughts. Obviously, you know we all love this movie. But if you could go back in time, where would you go and why?
I wouldn't go back. I would go forward.
I asked where would you go back?
that
that's-
wasn't the
that's
question.
part
That's
two.
part two. You just make your own fucking rules? Like, what is this? I asked a question.
All right, fine. I'd go back to Prohibition so I could go to a speakeasy because I feel like they'd be a lot of fun.
They have them here in the 20. They have them now.
No, but I want the
I like
thrill
that
of
too.
like I could
That's my favorite time period. Yeah, I get it. It's cool. It's a good
go
idea.
back and hang out with Nucky.
Yeah. Marvel.
I always said like Disney, first day at Disney. Like I wouldn't do anything like too crazy.
Yeah.
Just far enough, not too far back.
You wouldn't go back and see the birth of Christ,
That-
November
I mean, that-
25th,
yeah.
0000.
It's either that or Walt Disney World Land.
Yeah.
December 25th.
000. Bob?
I don't know. I have these conversations a lot with people about like just my like bit is always like I'm good. I'm a white male. I could go wherever I wanted. Like you know what I mean? Like that's like kind of fucked up.
nothing's
but, like,
concerning.
Yeah, I can go wherever. It doesn't matter. But I think in reality, like when I was a kid in King Arthur's court, like medieval times seemed awesome. But I don't even know that I'd eat the food that's there. So I think I'd like to see the moon landing. Even though it's a conspiracy,
Like on the
it's
moon?
still, like
Yeah,
I'd like,
you mean
like
the
the
moon?
world in 1969.
You want to go to the movie set as it's happening?
Yeah, but like people just all like the world locked in for one thing happening, right? Like
Oh, so like
1969. No, because it's different. Because like you weren't waiting for that to happen.
It's a joke.
George Bush was.
Yeah, no, he was reading to kids.
Nick?
Nick, cut that.
Yeah, cut that. You don't have anything? I would go back and try and see the Beatles. I think that's like an easy,
Mm-hmm.
not life changing,
Yeah.
nothing crazy. Yeah, I think that's what I would do. So obviously I give this a 5 out of 5. Bob mentioned we all gave it a 5 out of 5. Marvel,
Yeah, 5 easy.
Nick,
5 out of 5.
love that for you.
All right, one more game.
So Bob's is going to send us home. Take it away.
All right, so the big thing on social media right now, or not big thing, but a thing I keep seeing on social media is like people blind ranking. Like, all right, I'm going to give you 5 things, and you have to rank them before you know what's coming next, right? So, like, there's a guy who does, like, who I'd get a beer with, and it's like Harry Potter characters, Lord of the Rings
I've
characters.
seen a Rizzler do this.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, yeah. I'm going to give this 8 boobs. So I made just a big list of characters from this film, and I'm just going to have you guys blind rank the characters, not knowing who else is on the
Is
list.
this who I want to get a beer with, or
Yeah.
like,
You can do
how much I like
favorite
what's
character. What do you want to do? Favorite character? Or
Is
do you wanna get a beer
Marvin
with?
Berry on there?
The whole Starlighters crew.
Marvin Berry?
Marvin Berry.
Your
is on
cousin?
there. Marvin Berry is on there. What do you want to do? You want to get beers, or you want to say how much you enjoy the character?
I'll say character.
Character.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So Shane, I'm gonna have you go first. You pick your list, 1, 2, or 3. I have 3 different lists.
You have 2 different lists of people?
Yeah.
2.
2, okay. So your first character is George McFly. Where would you put him out of 5?
5. He kind of stinks.
All right, so George McFly stinks. Okay.
And he's a
he's
a peeping Tom.
You have a fun list.
Weirdly, Hitler's on that
You
list too.
you have a fun list actually. Man,
You know what? Knowing that doesn't change my ranking.
list 2 might be the most fun. So number 2, Mayor Goldie Wilson.
Oh, that's a 1.
Locked in.
Which one? Which version? Janitor or
Nah,
mayor?
just the character in general, all
I
the
like the
time.
sound of that.
Yeah, that's an easy one.
All right, 3, Doc Brown.
You fucked me with the Goldie.
Yeah, that's
that was
my
a nice
point.
rug
You
pull.
motherfucker.
That was a nice rug pull. He's 2.
All right, so Doc Brown is your 2. 4, the 3D glasses guy from Biff's crew.
Damn it. So that's an obvious 4.
That's your obvious 4. Number 3, the Libyans. So your 5th was the group of Libyans. And I don't know that you're wrong, to be honest. Like
Honestly,
I
Yeah,
think
they could
that,
have been nice.
The Libyans are very like Three Stooge-esque. The way their like gun always jams at the right
he
moment,
just
and he's like
can't do
slapping
anything.
Yeah,
it.
he's just like,
so
"Ah,
so I think that actually, aside from Doc Brown, I think you had that in the correct or a reasonably correct order. Marvel or RP, who wants to go next?
It's on him.
All right, so Marvel, you have 1 or 3 to pick from.
I'll pick 3.
3, okay. So first character,
He went like this. I picked 3.
And a hell of a 1.
pick,
A bit from earlier.
pick Freema Lord. First character, Lorraine.
Which version? Just in general?
Lorraine McFly, I guess. Lorraine, I don't know. Yeah, Lorraine.
3.
She's a dream.
She's exactly where she should be, I think. Lorraine,
It's a dime.
but like arguably like the most annoying part of the film sometimes.
But the fact she follows him home, yes.
Isn't he a dreamboat?
All right, number 2,
Calvin.
Fred the drunk. The guy who when Marty
homeless
comes
guy when
back,
he comes
he
back.
goes,
Crazy
"Oh, Fred
driver."
the drunk.
Yeah, crazy
It's
driver.
so great to see you."
I want to put him on number 1. I don't want to waste my number 1 spot. 4.
All right. I know where your number 1 should be. I'm just gonna see if you pick it right or not.
All right.
Biff.
He's my number 2.
Okay.
I like
You're sitting in a good spot right now.
Can't wait
I'm
till
gonna hold
Principal
this
Strickland
off because I
comes
know
up.
what's going on here. All right. Your 4th person, Uncle Joey, always in prison.
One of the weirdest things.
Yeah, like,
Get used to those bars.
I don't know that Uncle Joey's a 1 or a 5 though.
Yeah,
now
yeah,
looking
yeah.
back.
Yeah.
Like, you fucked up somewhere.
the baby.
Get used
Yeah,
to
or
those
the
bars,
adult.
buddy.
It's
in
so
prison.
funny when he's a kid. He's like, get used to it.
5. That's
All right,
my
Uncle
number
Joey's
1. Here
your
we
5.
go.
Oh, here you go. The Libyans again.
Nah, it's Einstein. It's exactly what
Oh,
Einstein
yeah.
did.
that's a good one.
Yeah, so Marvel messed up with Uncle Joey, but Einstein is exactly at number 1 where he belongs. All right, RP, you ready?
Born.
All right. So, first person, Jennifer.
Oh,
Damn.
Okay.
barely in it.
Harsh.
Yeah,
That's
but
your girl,
now
though.
you're in a rough spot now. You put her in the wrong position for this list. I'll tell you that right now. All right, there's one character that has not been mentioned that you know is your number 1 at this point. So you're locked in on your number 1. Principal Strickland.
5.
That's the easiest 5 I've ever heard.
Yeah, that's exactly where he belongs.
He's 5 over the Libyans, I think.
Yeah, but he plays.
No, wait, so who's
He
worse?
He
The
plays.
Libyans
It's Strickland.
Look,
or the
I just want
no.
to say this: the
Libyans-
Libyans were. They had something stolen from them.
Yeah, they didn't do it.
And they didn't kill anyone.
They didn't. Well,
They did
the way
kill-
it came
Well,
out,
I mean, they were going to.
they were trying to. But
also
Strickland's
the-
just a dick.
All right, put you in. See where you land here. Lou Carruthers, the diner owner, back in 1955.
So I have 3, 2, and 1
you have
available.
1, 2, 3 left.
I'll go 3.
He's the most
Yeah.
racist one.
Tab. Can't give you a tab. You don't worry. Anything.
Isn't he the one that says, like, a colored mayor?
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's 1955.
Yeah.
If I could
It's-
switch,
That's a little bit like different.
kind of is what it is.
He talked to my number 1 like
And then
that?
It's a G movie.
So, aside from maybe Jennifer, RP has crushed it because he's got the easiest list.
I didn't pick it.
Marty.
Oh, oof. I guess 1.
This is where you could fuck this up because now you put Marty at 1 and Marvin Barry in the Starlight.
Marvin Barry. Marvin, it's your cousin Marvin. Well, that was fun. Nick,
All
who
right.
had the best list?
It's just fun. Shane's just fun.
Oh, he's
Shane-
right.
Shane's is awful. Mayor Goldie Wilson is the number one. Doc Brown 2. Libyans 3. 3D guy in Biff's gang 4. George McFly, who he says is the worst. Not a terrorist, not a racist, but he's the worst.
Oh, he's a peeping
I
Tom.
love his character.
He's a peeping Tom.
He is a peeping Tom. You're right.
So, Bob,
In
thank you
broad
for,
daylight.
for teeing that up. Any fact about the movie or like just a scene that you want to just call out before we end the episode? Is there anything for me? It's how hard Marty hits his head on the concrete after he gets hit by the car. Like that scene just sticks with me. Like I'm sure it's fake. I'm sure they put like a rubber thing on his head, but he hits his head.
It was a thud.
Yeah, like when he lifts his head up and then lays it back down, like it smokes the concrete. That's just why I want to.
For me, it's when Marty gets back to the future and he goes to the One Pine Mall to check on Doc Brown, and then he sees Doc Brown get shot, and then other Marty goes back in time, and then Marty McFly just throws himself down a hill. Like he doesn't like try to navigate the hill. He just jumps, and like it cuts to him like rolling down, and I'm like, well, why did he do that?
I remember thinking that he doesn't trip. He full on
He
dives
just,
down
like,
the hill.
He's like, the fastest
The
way from
fastest
here to
way.
there
Yeah,
is
it's
to just
fun.
launch my body.
Marvel.
It's always the diner,
Yeah.
like scene when he's first and like the whole when he says McFly or whatever, and they both look,
Oh,
or
that's
like
Would you fall off a boat?
yeah, like George, the
Yeah,
best.
the life
George,
preserver.
Life preserver.
Right.
George
so
starts
funny.
talking and he just like looks
Yeah.
like that look, like that scene always kind of like stuck out.
Isn't that one of the bits they repeat the McFly and then like
They
multiple
repeat.
people
They
look
repeat
over?
everything.
Yeah.
Across the trilogy, they repeat everything. It's kind of annoying by the third one, I will say, but yeah, they repeat. What about you, Shane?
Favorite scene?
No, just like a thing that sticks with you that like you want to talk about or call out before we go.
I talked about mine already. The lightning striking the tower
Yeah,
and
it's awesome.
the Doc just being super slapstick of like reacting to when the cord unplugs again. Just his face is
That whole
faces
scene,
throughout the entire
I've
movie.
seen that movie
So stressful.
100 times, maybe. Legitimately. I'm watching. I'm like, how's Doc gonna figure this out?
No, like I love this entire cast, but he's easily the best cast. Of
It's
the whole
his, it's
movie.
his eyes. It just,
Like,
the amount of acting he does with his
I don't
eyes.
think anybody could have
Better-
sold it the way he does.
Better
Better.
Christopher Lloyd film, Back to the Future or Bushwhacked?
Hello.
Or no,
He's not
it's not Bushwhacked. Dennis
Roger-
the Menace.
Oh, I was thinking you were gonna go Roger Rabbit.
When he's just cutting
Roger
the
Rabbit's
apple
good.
and the
He's-
fire down the little
You've
thing,
seen Who
Dennis
Framed
the
Roger
Menace.
Rabbit, right?
Yes.
He
a
is
great movie.
fantastic. in
No,
that.
no, I was thinking Dennis.
Cuckoo Nest. That's his-
He's great in Cuckoo's Nest.
So yeah, I think that kind of about wraps up Back to the Future Part
All right,
1.
well, we're going to go back to
And we'll
the
s-
future part 2.
We'll see you for Part 2 and 3. All right, Marvel, thank you for joining. Bob and Shane, as always. Producer Nick, hats off for producer Nick. He did a great
Yay.
job. If
producing.
this episode sounds like shit, it's his fault, not mine. All right, remember to rate, like, and subscribe. Check out our Instagram. We'll be posting there, and we'll see you guys real soon.
Real quick, before you end, will there be a Back to the Future previously recorded Redbubble T-Public promotion?
You can bet your bottom dollar.
Let's
That-
go.
Probably much like Star Wars, if it's up, you got to order your
Get it
shit
fixed.
right away because they
Get it
will
while
take
it's
it
hot.
down for
Bye,
copyright.
bye, bye, sell, sell, sell. All right, guys, bye-bye.